Bonjour, je suis Chaba et aujourd'hui nous allons lire en anglais un extrait du livre de Dale Carnegie qui s'intitule The Leader in You. Chapter 10 Handling Mistakes, Complaints and Criticism. No one, absolutely no one, likes to be on the receiving end of a complaint, a criticism, or a rotten review. We all bristle when the finger of responsibility is pointed at us. This is easy enough to understand. Nothing stings the ego like being told we've made a bad decision or supervised a failed project or performed below expectations. It's even more difficult when the criticism turns out to be correct. But mistakes get made, arguments arise, complaints, both legitimate and exaggerated, get lodged day after day. Customers are unhappy. Nobody is on target all the time. So how do you handle the knowledge that nobody is perfect, but criticism is hard to swallow? With a little practice and the help of a few time-tested human relations techniques. Let's not deny the obvious. It's not always easy keeping both balls in the air, but it's not impossible either. After a while, this particular juggling act can be mastered by almost anyone. The first step is to create an environment where people are open to receiving advice or constructive criticism. Spread the word again and again that mistakes are a natural part of life. One sure way to get this message across is to admit your own mistakes. Setting the example is very important. You can't expect from others what you're not willing to expect from yourself. So says Fred Sievert of New York Life Insurance Company. Shortly after he arrived at the company, Sievert had an opportunity to put his ego where his mouth was. Sievert explains, "I did something here that kind of outstanding people. I was off in France at an executive management school, and we had some critical data that had to be submitted. It was our 5-year plan, and there was a misunderstanding because it was my first time through this. Just before I left, we submitted the numbers. I was gone for 2 weeks. Of course, I was in touch via voicemail and fax, but we submitted the numbers, and there was a major crisis that occurred here. The problem was that I misunderstood the timing of the submission. I thought the initial submission was meant to be our first run of the numbers. I thought we then had plenty of time to analyze and talk about management actions that could be taken to improve the numbers. As it turns out, I didn't understand the process, and the first set of numbers that were given to the Executive Management Committee and the chairman were viewed as our version of the plan. I didn't know that. When I got back, I realized what had happened. After talking to various people, I know these people were shocked. I said at a meeting, "This is my fault. It's a communication issue. It wasn't a matter of not understanding the numbers. It was a matter of communication, and it was entirely my fault." While I was gone, people were pointing the finger at each other. My staff was saying, "Why didn't you guys tell us this was our last shot at this?" And the other people were saying, "You should have understood this was the last shot." Okay, everybody is pointing the finger, and I came in and stood up and said, "This is entirely my fault. I take full responsibility for it. It's a communication problem. It won't happen again." And you know that statement put an end to all the finger pointing. Several people in the room said, "No, no, no, it wasn't your fault. You know it was a combination of people." Readily admitting fault. It's one of the best ways anyone has ever invented for shifting momentum when blame is being distributed. Be the first to admit mistakes. Everyone else will rush to reassure you. "No, it's not so bad. No, it doesn't really matter. No, they probably were to blame. No, it all turned out fine in the end." Take the opposite tack. Blame other people for something, and just as quickly they'll start to contradict you, and they'll defend the correctness of their actions. Funny, isn't it, how human psychology works? Voilà, j'espère que ça vous a intéressé et donné envie de lire plus en anglais. Cliquez sur j'aime si vous avez aimé cette vidéo. À bientôt à votre succès. Au revoir. Goodbye.